Good afternoon to you all. I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to our tropical weather outlook video for today, June 11th, 2024. We have lots to go over today, including the National Hurricane Center monitoring now a new area in the Atlantic and the Pacific too, and also new forecasts released by forecasting agencies like Colorado State University released today as well, updating their hurricane season prediction for this year. We're going to go over that and much more. Thanks for joining us. A lot to go over today. So I guess we should get started right now. Starting off with the National Hurricane Center homepage, and you could see that we do indeed have an area to monitor in the Atlantic. It is a low chance. It is a 10-20, a 10% chance over the next 48 hours and a 20% chance over the next week. And this is also designated Invest Area 90L. So this is our first area of investigation, or invest like we call it. And it's basically like our designation system for tropical systems. Like we have Tropical Depression 1, 2, and then Alberto, Beryl, Chris, the names for this year. But instead we use numbers 99, 90 through 99. And then once we get to the end of 99, we go back to 90, and that's how we count our invest. So right now, since this is our first invest of the season, of the hurricane season this year, we're at invest 90L. It's actually AL 90, but we as hurricane enthusiasts like to call it 90L. Bottom line, this is an area of investigation that the National Hurricane Center is watching off the southeast coast, and it makes sense if you've been paying attention to the models over the last day or so, really beginning to pick up on something occurring in terms of tropical sort of development off the southeast coast. Although today they've actually backed off a little bit, at least in terms of the Euro, from them going really aggressive on potential development yesterday. But it's not only the Atlantic now, it is also the Pacific too. There we go, if the map was going to load, but now it has another low chance over the next 7 days, 20% in the Eastern Pacific. This is an area that we're gonna watch near Mexico that might try to spin up and do something, and also become the first named storm there. Once again, part of this more favorable pattern in the general Western Hemisphere that is coming right now as we head into mid-June, and it seems like development for both basins. We might as well soon get development in both basins as this favorable pattern sets in, and it's obvious given the National Hurricane Center. We're starting to see areas marked now for potential development. Taking a satellite look, though, this is really quickly a close-up on Invest 90L. It is off the western coast of Florida. This is what it looks like right now. Not very organized. Although one thing that this is being an issue right now is for lots of deep convection, lots of really heavy tropical moisture associated with this system, and it is bringing lots of heavy rain, flooding rains all across Florida. We talked about this being an issue, whether or not this was going to get designated as a storm or a system or a tropical cyclone of any kind. This was going to bring lots of heavy rain to Florida, and indeed it has. Look at all the convective activity that's going on over Florida. There's probably some really strong thunderstorms embedded within some of these cloud tops. They're basically on the down shear area, where there's a lot of rising motion. So there's lots of precipitation going on in South Florida right now. And I'll even show you on the radar. Could have made this a little bit bigger, but you get the idea. Look at all this rain over South Florida. I think there's already flooding happening. In fact, there's actually, I think, flood watches in effect for all of South Florida, and I think these warnings right here are flash flood warnings in effect for Miami. So you get the picture. Lots of flooding rain over the next day or so, and I think it's going to last longer. And this is happening regardless of whether or not this will become a named storm. We don't need really devastating impacts like flooding rain, like we see in tropical systems, to occur with the storm being designated. But obviously, it becomes a question of, once this moves past Florida and we start to see this emerge off the southeast and into the Gulf Stream, will this area develop? Obviously, it won't develop right now because there's lots of shear atop of this system. You could really see it, especially blowing in the upper levels. But once it gets to the southeast coast, it becomes a question whether or not we do get anything to form. And I'll show you once again, just to kind of show the idea of how much moisture is associated with it. the convection that is all associated with the storm is being stretched all the way up to quite literally Canada. This is so much deep tropical moisture that's coming from the Caribbean. It's also part of a sort of frontal kind of situation that's going on right now. But bottom line, it's going to continue to bring lots of rain to Florida and probably surrounding areas as well for the next few days until this completely moves out. But then we also have the Eastern Pacific as well. Decided to do this time a shot of the Pacific and the Atlantic instead of just an Atlantic full shot. So you could also see our Eastern Pacific area too. Not sure if this is the exact area that is what we're watching, but you could generally see convective activity as a whole is generally on the increase in the Western Hemisphere. We got to watch this area and then potentially the Bay of Campeche too over the next several days. And then we also have the Eastern Pacific too. And once again, as I did mention, this is generally part of an area of which more rising motion was expected in the atmosphere. And as a result of that, you're starting to see lots of convection pop up. And definitely it is a reflection that things atmospherically are becoming more favorable. And definitely we are probably to expect development within this general area of the world over the next week or so. So let's take a look at the models to see what they have. This is the 12Z GFS. Let's begin to run it out into time. 12 to 18 hours, you could see the area of vorticity over Florida. Not very organized, but nonetheless will continue to bring lots of impacts to Florida. And then it moves off the southeast coast by hour 30. Hour 36, you can see the GFS starts to, I kind of went ahead. But anyways, here we are, hour 48. And then into the next 3 days, you can see the GFS actually does try to concentrate this area a little bit. You could see some concentration occurs. These closed bars in here representing probably a closed low-level center that tries to develop maybe some sort of closed low-level pressure that develops on the GFS. Although it doesn't really last too long, maybe the colder waters, it merges over colder waters of the Gulf Stream, or I think maybe atmospherically it might not be as favorable on the GFS, so it doesn't last too long. Definitely not like the European that had yesterday, a pretty potent and decent looking tropical system on the model. That, or at least that was yesterday's run. They don't show that. Not even today, I don't think. But still, you can see generally on the GFS, there's something that tries to get going. This is hour 72, and let's just actually really quickly compare it to the European for the 12Z at hour 72. You could also see generally there's something that gets going on the European as well, an area of vorticity that tries to concentrate. And these are small signals that we like to look at in terms of determining and kind of picking out what we're looking at in the models, what we're looking for in the models when we're looking for the potential of development. And you can see on the European right here, right around hour 72 as this storm emerges off the east coast and it is over the Gulf Stream, we see this kind of concentrate in vorticity some, although like the European, like the GFS, it kind of opens up a little bit, does not concentrate fully by hour 96, and then this kind of just advances off to the northeast in the Atlantic. Definitely a little different from models from yesterday that were actually, especially the European, was really aggressive on forming something off the southeast coast. Looks like they're not as aggressive today. But if this doesn't become anything, our attention then focuses on the Bay of Campeche at hour 168. And let's really quickly go back to the GFS because you could see generally lots of broad vorticity begins to develop as part of our Central American gyre in the Bay of Campeche. On the European, what about the GFS? Them too actually have something occurring, and we actually take this out in time a little bit further. GFS not really concentrating anything strong or anything too organized, but at least there is a signal, as was expected for the last week or so now, that something would try to get going at least in the Bay of Campeche and in the Gulf of Mexico, or even the Eastern Pacific as well. And I actually think the GFS, you could see, yeah, hour 48 and into hour 72, some small area of vorticity, probably a weak tropical system at best, tries to develop on the GFS in the Eastern Pacific. And I assume that that's what the National Hurricane Center has this small area for, but it is reflected on the GFS as well. And then it kind of gets entangled in this huge mess associated with our gyre system over Central America, and then it moves up into the Bay of Campeche. And then we'll have to see if it does concentrate at all. Let's now take the European out from our 168 and see if it does anything. It does a little bit more than the GFS. You can see that there is some sort of closed low-level center that tries to concentrate a little bit more, although I guess at least on this run it keeps it very close to Mexico, and then it moves in soon after it comes out into the Bay of Campeche. So I guess the European shows a sort of scenario where there's maybe not enough time for development to occur. Nonetheless, though, this is part of what we generally expected for this time of the month, and at least hinted in the models for the last several weeks now, that around this time of the month we would get something to develop in the general Bay of Campeche, Gulf of Mexico area. And it's been modeled for several weeks, and now we're slowly starting to see the pieces maybe come together that might as well just happen. But obviously it's not the talk of what's happening now, it's also the talk of the hurricane season in general, because Philip Klotzbach did release their new hurricane season forecast. They're really not that new. They're updated hurricane forecasts from June. If you remember, Philip Klotzbach with Colorado State University released a hurricane forecast in April. And actually for June, it's basically remained the same. They forecast 23 named storms, 11 hurricanes, 5 major hurricanes, and most importantly, an ACE score of 210, which is well above normal, especially compared to the average of 123. And if you want to read further into it, Philip Klotzbach did actually they have a full detailed document where they literally go over all their factors, their analog years, everything as to why they're forecasting the season that they do. And really quickly, just to show you, their numbers are quite literally the exact same as the numbers that they forecasted back in April. I guess kind of points to the confidence that they're really confident that this year will be very, very active. I mean, just take a look at the model signals that all the climate models have been showing since the beginning of the year. They've all been very consistent on the fact that we would have a really active hurricane season. So I don't really blame Philip Klotzbach for not seeing the need to update their forecast numbers at all. And to add on to the fact too, in terms of new climate model data that has come out for the month of June by Alex Boreham, he talked about the C3S model, and this was yesterday. He talked about it. The C3S is out and continues to show a quite favorable look in the Atlantic, that as it has again for months, as well as lots of cyclonic vorticity in the MDR. And just look at all those upper level easterlies in the Caribbean. Basically, he's talking about this map. He's talking about the upper level zonal wind anomalies. Upper level easterlies means very favorable in the upper levels, very typical as to what we would expect in a hurricane season. And then he also goes on to talk about velocity potential too, which may not focus as much over Africa. I think he's talking about, let's bring up the map. It's not actually here, but whatever. But he also talks about lots of cyclonic vorticity in the MDR and the Caribbean too. This is the map that he's talking about. Look at all this, 850 millibar cyclonic vorticity anomalies. This is actually a map that I don't see any other site has, but I guess his site, because this is all on Alex's site, which is cyclonicweather.com, which we do use occasionally when it comes to sea surface temperatures, anomalies, and stuff like that. But anyways, enough of me rambling on. Generally, what Alex Boreham is trying to show us is, once again, at least from another model, or this is a kind of model ensemble, they're once again hinting at the fact that the pattern looks very favorable for this hurricane season. This is the 850 millibar cyclonic vorticity. All of this orange and red represents above normal cyclonic vorticity, and once again you notice that all of that is throughout the MDR and deep tropics. And the reason why this is very significant is because more cyclonic vorticity, well, you could guess there's more turning in the lower levels of the atmosphere, and that probably means conditions may be more favorable for development to occur in the Atlantic this season. It's all coming together. Everybody's kind of agreeing now, especially that now that we're in the hurricane season, it has become clear that all the signals that we were watching for months are indeed going to pan out and now we have everybody honing in and locking in their active forecasts, as we've seen with Philip Klotzbach today. And I guess starting within the next week or so, we might begin to see just how this hurricane season will come to fruition, whether it does or not. We'll still have yet to see, but we're about to get our first activity, it seems like, or at least the chances are there. So I guess very soon we'll begin to see if these active hurricane season forecasts will indeed be right. Will they actually be right? Or maybe we'll see something a little different. We'll obviously all figure it out within the next 180 or whatever so days there are of the hurricane season left. It's all part of a journey that we're all going to be on. And hopefully you'll be here to join it with me too. With that being said, though, going to close it off for today. Thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, always, as I say, like, comment, subscribe, share with family and friends too. Comment your thoughts in the comments below. Any questions, I'll try to respond as quickly as I can. And with that being said, stay safe, have a blessed day, have a great day. Peace, love, and kindness to you all, and we will talk again tomorrow, as always. See you.